Hello, my name is Jordan and I'm on the video production team at MosquitoCurtains.com. In this session of planning your project, we're going to talk about a three-sided exposure with a tracking attachment. First thing I want to say about a three-sided exposure is that the concepts are exactly the same for a two-sided, multi-sided, and even wraparound applications. Basically, if you've got a corner in your project, this three-sided exposure is going to teach you the skills you need to handle just about any project out there. So before we get started, I want to talk about when you might want to call in your order. Many people are going to have these rectangular panels by the time they're done planning their project, and those are extremely easy to order yourself online. But some people are going to have more complex applications where they have sloped floors or notches in a curtain to avoid some sort of an overhang, or they're going to have a slope on the top of their curtain that they're going to have to deal with. When you have these more complex scenarios, go ahead and phone in your order so that we can help you complete that thing and get it sent out to you as quickly as possible. We've got a few goals for this project. Number one, we want to keep the bugs out. Secondly, we want it to look nice. And finally, we want it to be easy to use. So when choosing your perspective, I want you to use the perspective that you are on your porch looking out towards your yard. This way we can agree on what is left and what is right. At this point, you've probably seen a series of videos that introduce you to our surface and panel connections. We have marine snaps that allow you to snap to a wall or a column, magnetic doorways where panels can attach to each other with a magnetic connection, and then we've got stucco strips, which is basically a combination of the first two panel connection types. There are three basic steps to ordering. In step 1, we're going to talk about your panels. Step 2, we're going to talk about the tracking. And finally, we're going to talk about the attachments that you need to put it all together. So let's jump into step 1, panels. There are two basic paths that you can take whenever you're setting up your panel configuration. The first path is the outside hang, where you go on the outside of the columns and outside of the railing. The second type is an inside hang, where you go on the inside of your railing and on the inside of your columns. There are two basic types of corner columns. The first type is a regular, and the second type is an irregular column. A regular column is basically a column that you can snap to. You've got a 6x6 post here and another type of 6x6 post here. This one has a little lip at the top, but it's very minuscule. So if you think about it, you're going to have a pretty simple snapping surface right there, and that little lip isn't going to bother you very much. So we're still going to call that a regular column. An irregular column has some sort of a funny surface that you can't snap to. So it's either going to be a curved column like this, or it might be something more ornate like this, or even a spindle column. First, let's talk about handling corners with regular columns. Great thing about regular columns is you can snap directly to them. So what you want to do is consider an outside hang with regular columns. End your panels at those corner columns, and then snap your panels directly to the corner column in your application. Handling corners with irregular columns is a little bit different. Because we can't snap to this column, we're going to have to straddle that column using one of our two methods. The first method is what we like to call the right angle method. Okay, so what we're going to do is use an inside hang, and I'm actually going to use the right angle method to straddle this irregular column. You can draw to a right angle, but not past the right angle, and we like to use this because it really puts out the cleanest look. To draw a panel past a corner, however, you have to use a 90-degree curve track like this one right here so that you can slide the panel around the corner. So if you look at my particular application, I actually have irregularly shaped columns here, so ultimately I'm going to take an inside path whenever I do my application. But what I want to do to start is, it looks a little funny, but I've actually created my own little regular columns that I've thrown in here. And what I want to do is I want to pretend for a second that I have regular columns on these corners so that I can show the people out there that have regular columns how we would deal with that. First thing I would do is I would take an outside hang, which would allow me to snap to those regular columns on my corners. So looking at configuration 1, we've got these regular posts in the corner here that I can snap to. So initially I'm going to think about this as three main panels. One panel here, another panel going from there to there, and then the final panel coming back to the house. I can further break this down by splitting it with magnetic doorways and connections here. So now what I've got is I've got a magnetic doorway in this panel, cutting it into 2 panels. I've got another one here cutting it into 2 panels. And then finally I've got a magnetic connection here with a stucco strip that's at the end that allows me to separate this panel from this edge so that I can bring it back to this corner if I want to open it up. So if you look at all of this, I can basically open this panel and I can draw to that corner and I can draw back to here. I can open this magnetic connection and I can draw from there to there and there to there, and obviously I can open from that magnetic connection at the stucco strip and I can draw to that corner as well. So let's look at this as if we lined it out top to bottom so that you can actually see your panels. What I would ultimately end up with is 6 panels. It would be this first panel and second panel, that's those 2 panels that are right here. This third panel and this fourth panel, that's these 2 panels right here. And then finally I'd end up with one big panel right here, and we like to treat these stucco strips, even though it's just a 3-inch piece of material, we like to treat that as if it is also a kind of a mini panel. Okay, so that would be my 6th panel here. You can see the way that I've got this laid out, that I'm going to be able to snap to the house right here. Then I've got a magnetic connection here, and I'm going to be able to snap to that column right here with this panel, and then I'm going to be able to snap this panel to that column as well with those snaps. The same is going to happen here with this magnetic connection, 2 snapping panels here at this column, and then all the way back home to my magnetic connection at the stucco strip, and my snaps right here at the end, ending at the house. Alright, so we've talked about an imaginary configuration 1. Let's talk about a real configuration 2, where I'm going to use an inside hang to avoid these irregular corner columns. Now the first thing I want to do when I look at this porch is think about where I'm going to enter the porch and exit the porch. Because I have railing here and here, the only place that I can actually enter and exit besides my back door here is right behind this swing that goes onto the front porch by the front door. So I'm going to place a magnetic doorway right there so I can get on and off the porch. So as you can see, I've placed the magnetic doorway right here. I'm going to have a small little 2-foot panel right here that allows me to enter and exit my porch through this magnetic opening. The second thing that I'm going to have is I'm going to have one large panel that goes all the way around, ending here in a stucco strip that connects to the other side of the house. Now what that's going to allow me to do is something pretty cool. Because I have the magnetic connection here and the magnetic connection here, I'll be able to disconnect that panel here and here and pull that all the way to there and all the way to here so that I can swag in that corner. But the only way I'm going to be able to do that is if I place a piece of curved track right here in this corner. Because remember, I can draw to a right angle corner as I have set up right here. So this one's going to be perfectly fine because I don't want to draw past that corner. But I cannot draw past that corner unless I used the curved track, which is why I'm going to place a piece of curved track here. So this is a great example for how you can use the right angle method in a place where you don't want to draw past the corner, and a piece of curved track in an area where you want to draw past that corner for a particular application. Now another thing I really like about this configuration is my huge panel here is going to allow no seam in my main opening where I look out into my yard. So because I can make these things pretty much infinite length if I want to, I'm going to have an amazing view of that Georgia sunset as I look out this front porch. So let's take a look at this thing laid out left to right and top to bottom. So basically what I wind up with is that little P1 panel that's going to be right here, and then I have that one major panel coming all the way around to the stucco strip at the end. So technically we like to think about it as 3 panels. The first little panel, the second one, and then the third panel, even though it's very small, is our stucco strip. We like to treat this as a mini panel. So let's talk about how to measure this porch. first thing you're going to do is measure the width along the path the curtain and the track will take without any adjustments or overlap. Alright, so I'm going to measure that side over there, I'm going to measure this front, and then I'm going to measure this side on the path the curtain and the track will take, which is just going to be just inside this railing at the top here. Okay, so the second thing I want to do is I want to measure the heights at all four corners from the underside of the track surface, which is up here, down to the floor. So as you can see in my particular application, these are all going to be equal heights. They're all 108 inches, perfectly level, so I'm pretty lucky. But in some cases you're going to have different level heights on these corners, and in that case we can definitely still service it and still make a panel that'll be perfect for your porch. It just might have to have a little slope in it so that it can handle the difference in height. But what we like to tell people in this scenario whenever we're talking about the height is if it's within about 2 inches, you're not going to have to worry about that height variance. So just go ahead and take the difference in the two heights, and you can take that as an average, or you can take the larger height and you can use that, no problem. So finally, you want to measure where you would like panel breaks for magnetic doorways relative to some reference corner. So like I said, I'm going reference to this corner right here, which is that white line right there behind that swing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come out about 2 feet there for my magnetic connection. So let's talk about our actual measurements. First off, you want to ignore the width of stucco strips. We're going to account for them later. Secondly, you want to determine your unadjusted panel width. So you don't want to be adjusting any of these on your own. You want to take the exact measurement that your curtain and your track is going to go along. And then you want to make sure that the sum width of all the sides equals the sum of all the panel widths. Alright, so P1 plus P2 needs to equal that W1 plus W2 plus W3 here. So let's take a look at our actual numbers. I've got a 70-inch side over here, which is where my magnetic doorway is going to be. My front side is 165 inches across, and then it takes me 144 inches to get back to the house. So if you look at my two panels, I've got the 24-inch and this 355-inch panel. Those two need to add up to be the 70 plus the 165 plus the 144, and that is the case because my 379 inches does equal my 379 inches. I am in good shape on my measurements. Alright, now let's talk about the width adjustments, assuming that you measured just the exposure without any overlap. We have 4 simple steps to help you make your final panel adjustments. So let's jump right into it. In P1, we've got a 24-inch panel. Number 1 says, automatically add 2 inches per panel regardless of width. This is a panel, so add 2. Number 2, add 1 inch per panel for each edge that will snap to some surface. This connects right here by snapping to this surface, so we're going to add 1 right there. This does not connect to a stucco strip, so when it says subtract 1 inch for each edge connecting to a stucco strip, we do not have to worry about that one, so we'll say minus 0. And for tracking attachment, add another inch per 10 foot of panel width for a relaxed fit. This is only a little 2-foot panel, so we don't have to add any there. So our final panel width will be 2 foot and 3 inches. Secondly, let's do the second panel. So we've got a 355-inch panel. Automatically add 2 inches regardless of width. Boom. Secondly, add another inch per panel for each edge that will snap to a surface. This is only connecting to other panels with magnetic connection. So we're going to add 0 right there because we are not snapping to any surface. Third, subtract 1 inch for each edge connecting to a stucco strip and ignore the width of the strip itself, right? So this is actually connecting here to a stucco strip. So we're going to go ahead and subtract that 1 right there. And finally, we've got about a 30-foot panel here. So that's 3 sections of 10 feet. So we're going to add about 3 inches for a relaxed fit. So our final width for P2 is going to be 29 feet and 11 inches. Alright, we've made it to step 2. Let's order our track. So the first thing to think about is you only want to splice our factory cuts. Each 8-foot length of track here comes with a factory cut on each end. So that's where we want to be doing our splicing. Anything that you cut is actually going to receive an end cap. Now, sometimes the cut remnant isn't long enough to be usable, so that's something we're going to have to factor in as we're looking at our track, and only one track per entire side should be cut by you so that we can maintain that integrity by splicing only factory cuts. Alright, so let's take a look at how this all comes together. What I like to do is go ahead and put my curved track in place because I know that's going to account for 15 inches on each side of that curved track. And then what I like to do is go ahead and start laying in my straight track and then see what remnants I'm left with. So I'm going to go ahead and lay these in here. There's my first piece of straight track, second, third, fourth, and fifth. I can already see that I'm going to have some remnants here. So let's take a look at the actual lengths of my pieces of track. So because I've got 15 inches right here, I know that I need another 55 inches of this piece of track to make up my 70 inches on this side. So that's going to leave me with a 41 inch remnant over here. This is a full track, so I'm good there. 96 inches plus 15 inches means I'm going to need 54 inches of this piece of track to finish this side. So I'm going to be left with 42 inches right there. Continuing on to a straight piece of track there, and because I need another 48 inches to make up this 144 inches, I'm going to need that 48 inches from that piece of track, leaving me a 48 inch remnant down here. Now, if I look at these remnants, I'm going to see if I can use any of these remnants to make up any of these pieces. And unfortunately, none of my remnants are actually going to be long enough. So these are just going to be unusable remnants that I have left over from my pieces of straight track. But it's no worries because now I've got 5 pieces of straight track that I'm going to need to complete my project, and I'm going to be able to splice only the factory cuts. Now let's take a look at splices and end caps. All track connections are going to need splices, so you can see where the straight track comes into that curved track, I need a splice. The curved track coming out to this straight track, I need a splice. Need a splice for those 2 straight tracks and these 2 straight tracks, so I'm going to need 4 total splices. End caps keep carriers from falling out, so they're going to be required in all the ends, including right angle corners. They're going to be requiring end caps too. So if I drop those in, it's logical. This is an end of a piece of track, so that's going to require an end cap. This is my right angle method that I'm using, so that right angle corner, I'm going to be using end caps in each of those. And then finally, I've got another track ending down there, so I'm going to need my 4th end cap down there in the corner. So this is my final track order when I get to the order page. This is exactly what I'll order to complete my project. Alright, so we've made it to our final step. Step 3, we're going to order the attachments. There are 4 main attachment types. Marine snaps to snap to a wall or a column, magnets and fiberglass rods for our magnetic doorways, and elastic cords. First thing we want to look at is how many panel to surface connections we have and how many magnetic connections we have. So moving from left to right here, you can see that I have 1 panel to surface connection here and another one here, so I have 2 panel to surface connections. And you can see I've got a magnetic connection here and another magnetic connection here, so I have 2 magnetic connections total. Alright, so let's talk about marine snaps. 5 snaps placed vertically is a great number to use. You'll likely use extra snaps to seal the base of the curtain. And I want you to remember that the $130 industrial snap tool is fully refundable. So because we're going to be placing snaps here, we're going to be placing snaps right here behind that swing, and I'm going to be using snaps to be sealing the base of my curtain around here, I'm definitely going to want to order that industrial snap tool because I know it's fully refundable and it's going to make my life way easier. So if you look at the math, I've got 2 panel to surface connections times 5 snaps is 10 that I'm going to need to seal the sides, and then I'm going to order another 10 for sealing the base. So total, I'll be ordering about 20 snaps. Alright, so let's talk about magnets and fiberglass rods. 5 magnet pairs, which is 10 total magnets, is generally a good number to use for applications under 8 feet tall. You want to space your magnets 12 to 24 inches apart depending on your wind conditions, and each magnetic connection is going to require 2 fiberglass rods. So looking at the math, we've got 2 magnetic connections. One is going to be here behind the swing where I'm going to enter and exit my porch, and the other is going to be back here used on that stucco strip. 2 connections times 10 magnets is going to equal 20 magnets, and then those 2 connections times 2 fiberglass rods per connections is going to equal 4 fiberglass rods. And finally, let's look at elastic cords. I'm going to have 2 free-flowing corners of an inside hang. So I've got a corner right here and a corner right here. Each corner of an inside hang requires an elastic cord. So 2 corners is going to require 2 elastic cords. So we are done with attachments, alright? So this is going to be my final attachments order. Now one thing that I want to mention about this is order plenty. Because if you order too many snaps or magnets, you can always return them with the industrial snap tool, and we'll just add to your $130 refund. So if you order too many magnets or too many snaps or too many anything, right? Too many elastic cords, you can always ship that back to us, and we'll happily refund it with your industrial snap tool. So we are done. This is our final order. So whenever we get to the order page, we'll be able to order our panels, we'll be able to order our tracking, and we'll be able to order our attachments to complete our project. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. As you can see, we started with that porch on the left hand side, and on the right hand side is the actual finished installation of our beautiful mosquito curtains. I can't wait for you to plan your own project, and I personally can't wait to see the photos of your amazing installation. Thank you so much again for watching, and have a great day.